And it was basically uh something they said, and I was like, yes, breath is so important. It's like life. It's like eternal life. And they were like really curious by why I said that, and basically asked me like, could you make another video about why the breath is connected to your eternal life? Okay. So I'm going to I'm like thinking of like how to structure this video, but essentially I'm going to do it in a way where I'm going to compare the breath with the physical body, how it works, and then the breath with the mind, and then the breath with the soul. Okay. But they're all kind of interrelated. So they might not fit completely properly in these categories because we are one entity and we can't really compartmentalize ourselves quite so distinctively. So basically, in my integrative yoga in my yoga teacher training, one of the most shocking things that we learned was that the number of our breaths are limited, are finite and not infinite. And basically, at our birth, it is determined. It is already determined how many breaths each of us is going to breathe. And we all breathe kind of different breaths. Different, we have different like pool of breaths. That clearly shocked all of us. And we all kind of panicked a little bit, like, oh my God, no. Now that means how have I been breathing before? Or like, what does this even mean? And all these things, right? And so this was a bit strange. And so that actually put me immediately into like a very deeper thought. And I was thinking, all right, I know the breath is increased when we're stressed or when we are angry, like, you know, you inhale more and stuff like that. So that kind of makes sense that if you're more stressed, I can understand it from the perspective of, okay, if you're stressed, that's going to shorten your life, right? Or like if you get angry a lot, it's going to shorten your life. And that's also, those two emotions are kind of like related to the frequency of your breath. They always increase during that time, like you'll breathe like faster, right? So it made sense to me in that way, and I share that thought, and it kind of like everyone was like, oh, okay, I get it, you know, like that kind of makes some sense. And all these things. So in my personal practice, what I mostly do is to slow the breath down, like really slow as much as I can. So one of the things that my teacher taught us after teaching us this wonderful, shocking fact about breath and how our breaths are limited in this world, he was talking about look in nature, and to see how the same principle is manifest. For instance, a rabbit like breathes like 64 breaths per minute. I think that's like a average. And 60, that means like every second they are breathing like really quickly. And a monkey, and the lifespan of a rabbit is really short. It's like only a couple of years, like maybe even a couple months sometimes, like depending on if it's the domestic kinds or the wild kinds, right? Um, then you have the monkey. The monkey is like about 34 breaths per minute. And that is like basically for every 2 seconds, one breath happens, right? So it's like something like that. And the lifespan of a monkey is about like maybe like 14, 20 years. I'm not quite sure. I think different species like varies, but it's in the 10 to 25 range. And a turtle, which can live up to like 400, 500 years, depending on the species. Again, if it's like a tortoise, or like a turtle family species, they can live up to like 400 years, and they breathe 4 breaths per minute, right? And just to give you like a comparison of where humans are at, humans normally breathe about 14 to 60 breaths per minute. So we're kind of on the lower range, but we're not at the range of a turtle. So that's why the turtle as a symbolism for it was actually the logo of the yoga teacher training place that I went to. It was like the sign of a turtle. It's basically like elongating your life, right? By doing yoga and all these things. And so if we think about what are the characteristics of all these three animals, rabbits are incredibly fast. They're like hop, 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 like, and they go really quickly, and their movements are really fast. A monkey as well, jumping from branch to branch, like all that, like it's kind of coherent with the personality of the animals as well, or like the characteristics of what they typically do. And then you have the turtle, which is super slow. Like we have so many fables of like the tortoise and the hare, and like slow and steady wins the race. It's the same thing with life, you know, even though the tortoise has like this symbolism in like all these like fables, it's actually in reality, it's very slow and steady. And in a different aspect, you could actually see it from the lens of breath. It's super slow. Another example is also the movie, the cartoon animation called Kung Fu Panda. If you look very carefully at that movie and look at all the animals and which one is the Shifu, like which one's the real head, it's a turtle, the real turtle. And he's the one that's even in the next life, he still gives guidance to the dragon warrior, right? And so the dragon warrior in this lifetime, like who is like a panda like moves super slowly. I don't know the statistics or numbers of how quickly, how many breaths per second a panda does, but I know it's slow because the panda characteristics of a panda, that's why we think it's so cute and fuzzy, because it's slow. And it's like, even when it fights, like it can't really fight like aggressively. It's just like, ah. You know, it's like, it's almost hilarious how they fight because it's like so ridiculous, right? So just based off that one cartoon, you can see, and even the evil one, the ox, Kai Lan, I think was his name, he was like an ox, like a big ox, and like they're known to be very like steady, very calm, and very focused, essentially. So these animal symbolisms, we can kind of like use them both symbolically but also realistically, calculate their number of breaths and then be like, all right, well, there's a pattern here with the number of breaths animals have and the number of breaths and the lifespan that they have. Humans are exactly the same in that sense. So whether or not you believe the yogic principle that this is it, scientifically it also makes sense in the sense of like stress or fear or anger, like these type of emotions that kind of expedite the breath, they will also change your ultimate lifespan. Like if you're always in a state of stress, it's gonna shorten your life, right? So that's the part of how it's connected to the body, right? But on from like a lifespan perspective. But then I just also want to share a little bit how the breath is actually related to two different parts of our nervous system. So our inhales are related to our sympathetic nervous system. So when you run, when you're flighting, running away from somebody, that is connected with our sympathetic nervous system, which is our alert, run away, save yourself. All the blood shunts to your arms and legs away from your heart and not into the digestive system, right? And our exhales are actually related to our parasympathetic nervous system. So basically, the part of our body that we digest food after we eat, we feel super tired and sluggish. That's kind of like all the blood, instead of going to your arms and your legs, because you don't need it there, go and move to the center of your body, in your heart, in your digestive system, so that it can circulate there and digest food and help like all the organs, help the food digest and absorb the nutrients, right? So this balance of your inhale being connected to your sympathetic nervous system and your exhales connected to your parasympathetic nervous system, you can just check right now to see, as you're breathing, your inhales and your exhales, which one's longer. I will typically say that my inhales I have no problem with, but I do have sometimes a challenge of exhaling completely, which means like if you like really exhale and let go of all of your breath, you'll still notice on the bottom of your belly, like there's still, it's not going all the way down and out. And it's kind of like those muscles down there have not really been fully like working, because you've been like usually doing the upper body breathing, right? And even though I've like practiced breath for a really long time, still, if I'm not conscious of my breath, you can happen where you're breathing on the upper parts of your body and not the lower parts of your body. So what normally should happen when you're breathing properly is that your hands should be on your stomach. Your hands could be in your stomach. And when you inhale, your belly should go out. Usually people don't even know the direction of this. They'll like inhale and suck their stomach in. No, that's not it. You inhale and your belly goes out. Okay, belly goes out like this. And on the exhale, your belly goes in towards your spine. So inhale, belly goes out. Exhale, belly goes in. Let me just show my belly here. So inhale, belly goes out. Exhale, belly goes in. So that's the directionality that is supposed to happen when you're inhaling and exhaling your breath. So that's kind of connected to our nervous system and how that works there. So if you have any like nervous system issues, that's where it's going to manifest with your inhales and your exhales, or you might like not even be able to breathe like fully, like and smoothly, and then exhale smoothly out. Like I know people who, when they try to breathe, they're like this. It's not, they can't actually do like one continuous slow breath. All of these things kind of like take time. And so when your breath is so intimately related to your nervous system, you can imagine the amount of health basically that is connected to your nervous system, because your nervous system is the tentacles that are pointing outwards as to sensing the world. Once you have all your stuff healed within your body, within your nutrition, your sleep is good, everything is good, the only thing that you will need to regulate on a day-to-day basis is your nervous system. Because if you like you get a fright and like somebody scares you, your nervous system is a little disjointed or like a little frazzled, and so you're going to need what to do to come back to calm, to your center point, is regulating your nervous system. Is like doing some breathing practices, calming your body down and letting your body know that it's like safe. So the thing that we need to know about the breath is that when we get scared or when we have an alert system, so the sympathetic nervous system is connected to the autonomic nervous system, which basically means the automatic nervous system of the body. So all the things like our heart pumping very like on its own, like we can't tell our heart to stop, right? It's a part of that system. And or digestion, we can't tell our digestion not to absorb the food, not to break down the food. You know, we just can't do that. So all of those things are part of the automatic nervous system. We don't have control over it. It is a natural, instinctive, biological process that has saved and preserved us for millions of years. However, it gets switched on nowadays when we do like a YouTube video, or we do like a PowerPoint presentation, or we want to express our feelings to someone. It's not about a saber-toothed tiger wanting to kill us, which is how this biological system developed in the first place. But it's more to do with just being nervous of like human interaction. So you're not actually in physical danger that you're going to die, which is why your whole system is geared towards sending blood all from your central of the body to your arms and legs so that you can be able to run faster. So you have more blood on your arms and your legs so that you can run, right? So since this is an automatic nervous system, you cannot control it. However, the only thing that science has learned to trump this whole system, to intersect it, is basically to exhale a long 6 counted breath. So if you exhale when you're in this fright and flight like situation, if you exhale for more than 6 counts, like that's like That's 6 counts of breath. When you breathe, exhale out for 6 counts, your body, you're tricking your body that it's like actually calm, and that it switches from the automatic nervous system to the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest, digest, and sleep sort of phase. And that's the phase that you need to feel calm. This is also the place where we learn how to do creative solutions. We cannot think of creative solutions when we're in this autonomic nervous system state. And another one of my videos on YouTube, I think it's titled something about like Pure Breath Program or something like that. I describe this process a little bit more deeply, so you can go and watch that if you like. But I'm going to move on to now talking about how it's related to the mind, and then moving on how it's related to the soul. So in yoga, basically, yoga means to yoke. The yoking part is yoking your body, your mind, and your soul all into one line, all into its core, essentially. And a lot of the times in yoga, what we're doing is actually working through the mind. So that's like the layer of the key, where the body's here and the soul is up here, and the mind is the interrelational point that can kind of like, once you click the mind into place, then it's like the body and the soul can like just have a party, right? And be connected and feel like integrated in that sense. And how, you might say, and disintegration might happen between the body and the mind and the soul. There was a story that the manifestation of God in the Baha'i writings, Baha'u'llah, when he went to the mountains in Sulaymaniyah, he described, and this is like the same type of 2-year exclusion that all of the prophets had, like 40 days of Jesus in the desert, things like that. Moses in the burning bush, and I think that's the same time. But basically, it's like each of the prophets, they had about 2 years of seclusion, right? And one of the reasons why Baha'u'llah went to the mountains of Sulaymaniyah in Kurdistan was actually because there was a lot of disunity that happened within the Baha'i community, that he went in seclusion. And when he went in seclusion, he was so filled with grief that his body had left, his soul had left his body. So this is a manifestation of God literally expressing that grief was so strong that the soul had left the body, because the soul is, as the Bab describes it, is so holy that even when giving laws about how to deal with the corpse of a body, is that because a soul was once associated with a body, the body, even when the soul has passed and dissociated from the body itself, just having been associated with the soul, needs to be treated with the utmost respect. That if you can afford it, that the body should be buried in crystal. They also provide other materials like marble and like wood, but something sturdy that can like hold the pressure and weathering and whatever of like when a body is buried into the ground, so that this sanctity of the body, the pureness, the amazingness of the body is protected. Okay. So if a dead body needs to be treated with so much dignity and respect, imagine when the manifestation of God is feeling grief. It is such a foreign thing for the soul to actually feel grief on that physical level, because it's the body that feels grief. It's not the soul. The soul is kind of like independent and not harmed by any of these emotions that we feel, but it is intimately connected. So one of the reasons why a soul would kind of like dissociate from the body is because the soul is so sanctified, it does not recognize these things like the sadness of the body. It's like, I'm so holy, pure, and sanctified that I don't even recognize this. Like I like need to dissociate, because what is this? You know, it's not there to abandon you, but it just like temporarily dissociates. Sometimes these dissociations are subtle. Other times they're like big that you literally need to do something in order to like welcome your soul back into your body, right? And a lot of times when we have like a trauma or like a memory or something like that, we will hold our breath, and literally it's like a heavy metal emotion in our body where it hasn't been processed. And that when this process of like bringing the soul back into the body and connecting it even deeper, which is the whole practice of yoga, bringing the body, mind, and soul into integration, always, 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 little by little. Like it's like a compass, it's bringing it ever more intimately, more connected and related to one another. That's when the body you'll feel like a lot of breath release, like you'll start like you'll start panting, or you'll have a panic attack, or you'll have some sort of breath related sort of situation. So in that way, it's connected to the mind with traumatic events, but it's also connected to the soul. So this aspect of reintegrating the body, the mind, and the soul together is all in this way. It is also why in the Baha'i writings, it also talks about how drugs are so foul for the body because the soul like temporarily dissociates from the body because it is such a foul substance for the soul that it like just doesn't recognize it, and it will leave. And this is actually a very dangerous thing in spiritual terms, because when your soul like temporarily leaves, you're not able to make coherent decisions. You're not able to think clearly. You're all of those faculties that make you human, the fact that you're able to meditate, you need your connection with your soul in order to do that. And so it's essentially kind of like saying you're severed from the human kingdom when aspects of your soul, when aspects of your like breath in your body are not like really intimately like connected with one another. So I think that was it for this one. And I think in general, just like to say like how more the breath is connected with the soul, when we do breath practices, we're actually not only bringing these things into alignment, but then also removing the veils that are there to trap you from like all the things that have been covering your eyes from it. So you get to see more and more clearly that connection between your soul, your mind, your body, and how it relates to one another through the one tool of your breath. And so the breath is the only system in the body that when you bring your attention to it, you can control it. And then when you forget about it, it will go automatic. There is no other system in the body that has these faculties, that when you bring your consciousness to it, I can control it, manipulate it, elongate it, stop it, temporarily, and then like move on with it, right? And when I don't focus on it, it goes in its natural rhythm. We can't do that same process with the heart or with the digestive system or with our kidneys to tell it to stop filtrating, or telling the liver to stop processing fat and bile and all these things. So it's a very unique system in the body. And this aspect, this dual aspect of when your consciousness is connected to it, you can access that part of your soul that is like the consciousness of your soul, because your soul is also being tested and unearthed on this planet. So this is where the unconsciousness of the breath kind of like comes about. It's like when you're not conscious about your breath, it just like keeps going, and it's like you're not like really connected with life. That's why one of the major things of the Pure Breath program that I created, it is not about doing breath gymnastics, but it is about the frequency of attention you bring back to your breath. So it's like my breath practices are only a minute long, but I tell you to do it like 3 times a day. So the frequency of coming back to your compass and checking your compass every day to bring it back to center, bring it back to center. Because when your ship of life is going on the ocean. 1 degree off the course of an ocean is like a very long distance. If you spend like an hour 1 degree away from where you need to go, it is the distance to come back is super long. So it's like the amount of time I want you to come back just a little bit, 1 minute, that's enough. The point is the attention. The point is not the amount of time you stay in it, but is to constantly bring your attention back. So when you practice building a habit of breath, of being conscious of your breath, this is how we kind of like constantly are bringing our attention back to our soul, our mind, our body. Where is our body? Where is our mind? Where is our soul? Again, 1 more time, repeat. Always back in the sense so that we are an integrated human being walking on this planet, and not like our body is here, our mind wants to be somewhere else, our soul is trying to pull us in a whole different direction. These directions are like really, this is where suffering happens. This is where resistance happens. This is where disconnection happens. This is where not being in flow happens, is from this like state. So I hope that was clear. If there's anyone here who has any questions about the breath, you're welcome to turn on your audio and ask away, or turn on your video and I will bring you up close to me. So for those who just arrived, this video I'm going to put on YouTube because somebody on YouTube asked me this question. So if you would like to ask a question, you can turn on your microphone and just ask. But if you don't mind your video to be on YouTube, then you can also turn on your camera and then I'll put you up with me and then we'll do it together. So let me know in the next couple minutes if there's any questions, and if not, we will move on to the next question. Okay, we're going to move on to the, but not today. Let me think of a question. All right, I'll let you think of a question, then you can ask me another time. Okay, so we're done for this question and we're going to move on. Cool. Okay.